for Danganronpa. I'm talking about Shera. This is part 2 on my Toon Talk deep dive into Shera and the Princesses of Power. So, yeah, part 2 where I talk about Season 2. So, Season 2, we open on Shera practicing her fighting skills in the hologram room of her temple. She did off-screen unlock a new power. She can now turn her sword into a variety of different things. She just needs to learn how to control it. Meanwhile, Katra is now second in command at the Horde, and she's training the little team that she used to be on. Before she got promoted. Also, Katra is sending robots out by the dozen to attack the princesses and friends. Bo does suggest that instead of mindlessly destroying the robots, they should capture one to study it to see how it works, which is that's a very good idea. Okay. We then cut back to the Horde, and guess who's making the robots? Entrapta. Now, this is where the fandom likes to Okay, sorry. This is where the fandom likes to argue over Entrapta. Some argue that she's dumb and she's ditzy and she doesn't know she's on the bad guy side. Some people claim that she joined the bad guy side, and some argue that she's neutral and doesn't care whose side. She just wants to build robots because she likes robots. And I do want to talk about this a little bit. So Entrapta knows she's on the bad guy side. She knows Horde, and she knows what Horde Prime is doing and all that stuff. She knows she's on the bad guy side. Katra told her that her friends weren't coming back. And Katra is right, they didn't. So even if Entrapta was in denial at first, going, no, they're coming back, eventually, as time went on, Entrapta would realize that Katra is right. So in Entrapta's head, she's thinking, well, if my friends didn't come back, they might not be my real friends. But Katra's here, and Katra's been here, and she'll always be here. Yeah, so Katra is my friend. That's what's going on in her brain. Also, Katra has been giving Entrapta a false sense of friendship since not the beginning, because they tried to lock her up in the very beginning, but Entrapta's relationship with Scorpio is genuine friendship, while Entrapta's relationship with Katra is a false sense of friendship. Katra tolerates Entrapta because she needs the robots. She wants robots and technology and information. So in Entrapta's head and Entrapta's point of view, she thinks Katra and Scorpia are all her friends, unlike the princesses who ditched her and didn't come back. So she's fully aware she's on the bad guy side. She just thinks the bad guys that she just in her brain thinks, oh, the bad guys treat me better than the princesses because the princesses never came back. Now, what Entrapta doesn't know is that the princesses think she's dead. That's why they never came back. They think she's gone. And I'm sure if Entrapta knew this, she would have left the Horde to return to the princesses. So, anyway, side rant over, moving on. Shadow Weaver is in a Horde cell, complimentary of Katra, and eventually, Team Princess gets a robot. Bo begins to take it apart, sees that there's first one tech inside, and puts two and two together and realizes Entrapta must still be alive and is probably forced to make these robots. Also, Light Hope the hologram tells Adora that if her and Swiftwind go and rebuild a watchtower, Light Hope can use that information from the watchtower to help Adora find out where she's from. Yeah. So while Adora and Swiftwind are doing that, Bow and Glimmer decide to go on a little rescue mission for Entrapta. Bow ends up catching Catra. Adora and Swiftwind find the watchtower. Bow and Glimmer end up having to let Catra go, because they think if they don't, the Horde will hurt Entrapta. Only to find out once they let go of Catra that the Horde was lying and Entrapta is fine. Adora and Swiftwind fix the tower. Entrapta accidentally ends up in Hordak's lab that no one's allowed to enter, sees that he's working on something, gets mad that it doesn't work perfectly for the first time. So while he's having a temper tantrum, Entrapta decides to work on it. Hordak reveals to Entrapta that he's trying to make a portal to another world, which opens up Entrapta's mind. It blows her mind, because in what's this place called, Etheria? In Etheria, there's no other planets, there's no other stars, there's nothing. There's nothing in the sky except for, the sun, the clouds, and the moon. That's it. So, yeah, because the whole, Etheria is in a pocket dimension, cut off from the rest of the dimensions, so no one's ever heard of stars or anything. Shera, Bow, and Glimmer find a old First One's antenna. Yeah, later on. They find a First One's antenna and are trying to figure out what it was used for. In the end, they end up giving a scrambled message. Catra, Scorpia, and Entrapta go on a little tech hunt, and Entrapta tells Catra about the evil virus that turned her robots evil. And once Shera arrives on the scene, Catra sticks the little virus disc on Shera's sword, infecting it, and also infecting Shera in the process. Scorpia gets the sword. Shera goes back to being Adora. But then these really big monsters show up, and their eyes are red, meaning they've been infected with the virus too. Scorpia ends up having to break the virus disc to stop the monsters. In the end, the Horde gang ends up finding that First One's tech they were looking for. Hordak wants to banish Shadow Weaver to Beast Island, which is an island full of monsters, and it said that no one has ever made it off the island or back alive. Spooky stuff. Now we learn more about Shadow Weaver. Shadow Weaver. Turns out her real name is Light Spinner, and she was a sorceress, but she dove into forbidden magic and ended up being banned from the the little sorcerers club. She got banned for doing forbidden magic, basically, and she joined the Horde to get revenge on the other sorceries for banning her. She ends up emotionally manipulating Catra into giving her her badge back. Sadly, it works, and Shadow Weaver uses it to escape, leaving Catra angry and sad. And I really started to feel bad for Catra here. Bow ended up figuring out some of the message, something about Serenity and Mara. And Mara is the name of the previous Shera. They end up going to the library Bow's dad's run, and we find out a little more about Bow. We find out that he's been lying to his dads this whole time, saying him and his friends all go to a college studying history. They try to help out by giving them everything they know about Serenity, which is not much. While in the library, Bo's dads have a runestone shard, and Adora, is it Adora? It ends up being activated. I think Adora accidentally activates the shard, sending these little bug monsters to the library, who turn out are protectors of this runestone. And eventually the jig is up for Bo, and he ends up coming clean about himself and apologizes for lying, and his dads accept him, and that it's a very sweet, touching moment, and it's cute, and I'm not crying, you're crying. The dads look at the scrambled messages. Turns out those aren't words. The scrambled message isn't words but constellations. Serenity is a constellation, and that is where season 2 just ends on a really big cliffhanger. I really like where the story is going. I've seen a lot of shows, quote, start over every season, where there will be a new villain with a new evil plan and a new adventure to stop them. We meet new characters along the way, and by the end of the season, villain gets defeated. Next, there's a next villain next season. And I like this a lot better. It fleshes out the characters a lot more. Yeah, I like this a lot better. Flesh out all the characters you have now before adding new ones. Make sure each character has their own motive for doing what they do. Make sure the audience understands why they're doing what they're doing. Not everyone thinks the same. Not everyone thinks like whoever's like the writer. Figure out how you want your characters are going to react to each other when they first meet, and once their character development happens, as the story goes on. Are they going to be strangers to friends, friends to lovers, lovers to enemies? And there's so many more than that. But yeah, I really like how season 2 we just fleshed out more characters rather than introducing a whole bunch of new ones, because I've seen shows do that where they have so many characters and they don't really flesh them out, so they end up just being a stereotype or having a single word as a personality. But yeah, anyway, this part of the deep dive is over. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in part 3.